tonight, 08085 909 693. If you want to pick up the phone to us. Now, next, the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, is facing a backlash from within his own party after praising Margaret Thatcher. He said she was a Prime Minister who had brought about meaningful change. Writing in the Sunday Telegraph, he said she had dragged Britain out of its stupor by setting loose our natural entrepreneurialism. Scotland's First Minister, Humza Yousaf, is among those voicing criticism. He says it's insulting to Scotland, where many communities still have the scars of what he called Mrs Thatcher's disastrous policies. Sir Keir defended this article while speaking to Broadcasting House on Radio 4 this morning.
The point I'm making in the article really is that you can distinguish political leaders, certainly in the post-war period, into those that had a plan and a sense of mission and those that drifted, essentially. And that's why I referenced Attlee, who obviously had a strong plan, New Jerusalem, Tony Blair, who captured the optimism of the 1990s, having changed the Labour Party, and Thatcher, now, who did have a plan for entrepreneurialism, had a mission. Doesn't mean I agree with what she did, but I don't think anybody could suggest that she didn't have a driving sense of purpose.
Martin Abrahams is from the grassroots organisation Momentum. Good evening, Martin.
Good evening.
Good evening. Well, is this pragmatic and brave? I hesitate to use the word brave, but is this brave of Sir Keir Starmer not to worry, not to simply to say what he thinks? If he admires some of what Thatcher did, why wouldn't he say it?
I don't think it's brave. I think it's bizarre, to be quite honest. I don't think any Labour Party leader should be heaping praise on Margaret Thatcher in any way, shape or form, because Thatcher's toxic legacy caused generational decay and suffering in working class communities that were built around mining and other industries. She destroyed jobs with her policies. She destroyed livelihoods. She tore the very heart out and fabric of communities in villages, towns and cities across the UK. You know, she has left a 40-year-long toxic legacy that we're still suffering with to this very day. And, you know, with Sir Keir Starmer riding very high in the polls, he doesn't need to say any of this. If he believes, you know, if he likes Margaret Thatcher, if he admires her, you know, why does he need to come out and say it? He's a Labour Party leader. You know, the Labour movement should be rallying around Labour Party policies, not heaping praise on, you know, such a divisive, such a toxic woman like Margaret Thatcher.
If he admires Margaret Thatcher, he shouldn't say it. That's the basis of your argument.
Well, if he admires Margaret Thatcher, then there should be questions about whether he should be leading the Labour Party, because the legacy that Margaret Thatcher has left, you know, like I've said, is hugely damaging. You know, one of the examples that I read about recently is, you know, North Sea oil. Margaret Thatcher sold off all of our North Sea oil assets pretty much to fund tax cuts for the very richest in society. She could have decided to follow what the Norwegians did and instead invest it into a sovereign wealth fund, which is now worth £1.5 trillion, or which is the equivalent of about $270,000 for every single Norwegian citizen. Instead, she flogged it off to the highest bidder, funding tax cuts for the very richest, widening inequality massively. And we're still living with those decisions today. Let's not forget, she privatised all our utilities as well. 40 years on, we're now seeing raw sewage being pumped into our seas, the threat of things like Thames Water going into administration.
But
it's
Keir Starmer's argument, Keir Starmer's he was telling Radio 4 this today, that his comments don't necessarily mean, he said, that he agrees with Thatcher's policies. He said he was distinguishing between political leaders who had a plan and those who drifted.
Well, he mentioned, you know, meaningful change, and I think that's why it's annoyed so many Labour Party members and Labour Party voters, to be honest, because the worry with, say, Keir Starmer is that he's not actually coming up with many policies that will create any meaningful change when we desperately need it after 13 years of this despicable Tory government. You know, he came into his leadership bid for the Labour Party with 10 very meaningful policies, actually, which managed to motivate a lot of Labour Party members to vote for him to become leader of the Labour Party. He then subsequently junked pretty much each and every one of those policies and completely shapeshifted into this new Keir Starmer that we see today, who, comes across as ruthless, but is actually not providing any real material changes that will really impact people's lives. We need to see things like public ownership of our utilities. Take the water utility companies back into public ownership and stop pouring raw sewage into our seas in the first instance. He can't even commit to that. So, we really do need meaningful change in this country. But the annoyance has come today is the fact that, he's not actually providing any of those solutions at the moment.
Mike O'Brien, thank you very much indeed, Martin. Mike O'Brien served in Gordon Brown's administration. Evening to you, Mike.
Good evening.
You were the last Labour Minister of